Welcome in onto the newest episode of Drinking with Friends. I'm sorry, wrong pod. Inside Black and Gold, Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak.
That's not a podcast. That's just, okay, you've driven me to drink again. Thanks, New Orleans Saints. That's not even a podcast. That's just every bar in the city right now.
Yeah, the Saints are definitely, you can blame them for our Sunday evening drink session because, Jeff, 51 to 27. Fourth straight loss in the Superdome. Obviously brutal all the way around. The story, at least for me, really doesn't end up being about the rookie Spencer Rattler's first start, just a really bad defense.
Yeah, I mean, you have to talk about both. Like, you can't not talk about both, and we'll talk about both, right? This is kind of a day early than we would typically do it. We were talking this morning, like, hey, it's a short week. If we wait until we wait until Monday to do this kind of post-game pod, well, it'll already be the next week. Like, we need to get this done tonight. And so I know this is kind of a weird schedule, but thanks for everyone who sticks with us. We're going to kind of do our normal thing. We're going to do studs and duds. We're going to do a mailbag in the final segment. But yeah, we'll start with the bad stuff. And I have a list here, and it's funny because, like, I have Spencer Rattler in the good and the bad section of my studs and duds here. And one is the first half and one is the second half. But I don't want to start with Spencer Rattler because I don't think that Spencer was the biggest issue in this game, right? Like, I think that the second half, there were problems and there was rookie mistakes. And we kind of talked about that this morning on First Take. And we talked about it in the last podcast, was like, rookies struggle. Rookies play like rookies. And if you try to put too much on a rookie, you're asking for problems. It's not going to work out for you. And that's what you had in this game. And my problem is not so much that Spencer looked like a rookie. It's that the defense, led by a defensive head coach that is supposed to be the strength of your team, has been anything but a strength, particularly when it comes to the most basic thing that happens in a football game. That guy has the ball. These guys need to go get that guy who has the ball. And I'm just breaking this down because sometimes it feels like the Saints don't understand this. These guys who don't have the ball need to go to that guy who has the ball and get him to the ground before he gets far enough that way that it's a problem. And I didn't think that I had to explain this, but sometimes it feels like they don't get what their assignment is. And they're just like, hey, I got to you. I touched you. What the hell? Like, you're supposed to be done now. This play's done. Why are we still playing? No, tackle the guy. Be a professional football player. Wrap your arms around the guy and get him to the ground. I don't know how many missed tackles there will officially be coming out of that game. But, I mean, how? I mean, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
I definitely had to look up who the heck Sean Tucker was because I had no clue.
You know how many rushing yards he had in this game?
130?
136.
136.
You know, with that added to his career rushing total, you know how many rushing yards he has?
I hope you're not going to tell me like 137.
166.
Yeah. I had no idea who this guy was. I can still say kid, just his second year in the NFL.
In his second year in the NFL. Going into this game, he had 30 career rushing yards. He had 130. He averaged 9.7 yards per attempt. Disgusting. Gross. Unconscionable. And the annoying thing is, like, this is we can't even say, like, hey, I can't believe it. Who could have seen this coming? The Saints spent all week saying, hey, tackling. It's our emphasis. I don't know. Maybe you need to emphasize emphasizing stuff because clearly your emphasis didn't work because the tackling got worse. And this is DA in the post game talking about, hey, we should tackle better.
Yeah, well, we didn't tackle. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing. I mean, I thought our tackling was atrocious in the game. And so, you know, when you don't tackle, you give up explosive plays and you give up big plays. And and then it just kind of snowballed on us a little bit, but it was not good enough.
How do you account for that, and kind of what do you see when you look at those numbers on the stat sheet?
We have to tackle better. I mean, I thought that was the biggest thing in the game. We didn't tackle in the game, and look, let's make no mistake about it. I mean, when it comes to the defense, that's on me. I got to do a better job with our guys. I got to make sure we understand what we're doing. We got to do more tackling drills. We got to, whatever the case may be. But it was not a good defensive performance at all. And look, I mean, that needs to be an area that we can count on. And it's been an area that we can count on, but right now it's not.
Yeah, and I think atrocious is a good word for it. And honestly, it's like the run, the failure to tackle the running back at the end of the game. I'm like, okay, fine, I can accept that. Like, you're worn down and the defense is kind of mentally defeated and they're going to run over you. Like, yeah, I can accept that. Though the most egregious issue was Chris Godwin. I mean, that catch and run, that's the point where it feels like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back a little bit. Like, the defense, it felt like the defense was at least holding up, being opportunistic. And then I think it was Willie Gay. When you go back and watch that play, it's kind of the issue with Willie Gay. Like, I'm not going to complain about Willie Gay in this game. I think he actually, out of all the players on the field, he made the most impact plays. Like, he had a sack in this game. He tipped the ball on a third down. But you go back and watch that Chris Godwin touchdown, and the issue with Willie Gay is he gets so excited to make a play sometimes that he just runs himself out of the play. Like, go back and watch it, and you'll see Willie Gay run all the way to the sideline trying to cut off Chris Godwin as if Chris was just going to run out of bounds. And it's like, no, he's going to cut back into the field. This is just the basic stuff of like pursuit angle, just riding a guy to the sideline, not allowing someone to just get a free run into space. And those are the things that the Saints are doing wrong. They're just not angling correctly. They're running to where they need to be and not sending and not like funneling the offensive player where he's going to get tackled. It's infuriating to watch. And it's just kind of it's been the issue, right? Like, you're never seeing a defensive player where they need to be. You are always constantly seeing them scrambling from out of position, trying to make a play from an under-leveraged scenario. Then Chris Godwin gets into the second level. I'm going to give Alontae Taylor the benefit of the doubt because I think he was dealing with a reasonably significant shoulder injury in that game, and he was probably dealing with some pain. And so that's probably why he didn't wrap up in that situation. He kind of just bounced off him. Jordan Howden, I don't know what the deal is with Jordan Howden. He's really been disappointing me in terms of, like, I just need you to go up and make a hit, dude. Like, you're a safety. Like, go make a hit. Go make that guy feel you. He hasn't done it. Jonathan Abram, I know he was dealing with a back issue. The injuries have been outrageous throughout the course of this season, and particularly in this game. You lost Tyrann Mathieu to a forearm injury. Sounds like it's not a major one where you're talking about, hey, like something broken or anything like that. But man, like, if you can't tackle, you can't do much in an NFL game. And that's how the game got away from you. That and not sustaining drives on offense. Like, you can cover up for a suspect defense in a few ways. One is turnovers, which the Saints were able to get. One is the offense is shooting itself in the foot, getting penalties, which was happening in that second quarter. But the other is the offense being on the field. And that was one of the bigger issues too, is like, you did not sustain any drives in that second half, and it just exposed the defense. And it all snowballed. I think that's a good word for it.
What they did, allowing, 7.9 yards per rushing attempt, just atrocious, not acceptable, obviously. And then you look at, obviously, the stats do tell you a ton here when you see Jordan Howden, Paulson Adebo, Marshawn Lattimore, Jonathan Abram, and Alontae Taylor, and that's the list of the leading tacklers on the team.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign right there.
No, you want your linebackers to be your leading tackler. And obviously you didn't have Pete Werner. That's not great.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to fill in for these guys, right? One of the wilder stats I saw, let's see if I could find it. Where is it? I had it. Oh, the 2024 Saints, this is from Jeff Asher. The 2024 Saints are the first team since the 1950 Baltimore Colts to intercept 3 passes, score 27 points, and lose a game by 24 points or more.
What was the year again?
1950. So
1950.
yeah, the better part of a century. The Saints, I don't know if I've ever seen a team face a 17-point deficit, erase it, take a lead at halftime, and then immediately face another 17-point deficit. Like you turned multiple, like you played 2 separate games, and in both games you got outscored by 17 points. It's wild. It's wild. The second quarter of that game feels like it was played in some parallel dimension, like some alternate reality from the actual game we watched, right? Like, what was that game? Like 3/4 of that game were the game we watched, and then the second quarter was like this bizarre, like outer limits scenario of like what might happen if the Bucs get 12 penalties and throw 3 interceptions. I don't know what that voice was, but it was just so strange. And I don't know, like I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated because it's not getting better. And you're looking at a 3-day window where you can say, hey, let's get better at tackling. I just don't know, man. I don't see things getting better. I don't see the recipe for things to get better.
No, the bad part is obviously with the run game, initially I remember it was like, oh, well, Saquon Barkley, he can, you contain him a little bit and then he can be that threat with just one big run, which he ended up doing. And then what was it? The Atlanta Falcons, Bijan and Algier had pretty good success.
Yeah.
And now it continues on and you got names that, you're looking on your phone going, who the hell is Sean Tucker? I know Bucky Irving just because he was a rookie draft pick this year early on.
Yeah, and you're right. Sean Tucker, it doesn't even sound like an athletic person. Like it just sounds like a guy who hosts a podcast or something.
Because initially, honestly, pops up on you're watching the NFL GSIS with the stats, and it said S Tucker, and I'm like, who the heck is that?
Right. Sounds like someone that was like serving popcorn, and they're like, okay, get out of here. We need somebody. We need somebody.
You're in, kid.
Yeah, and so yeah, the tackling, like I just genuinely don't know, and part of it is like, if you could have sustained drives and you could have kept the defense off the field, maybe you could have kept them fresher. Maybe that doesn't happen, but we say the same thing every week, and it's like, I don't see that as an excuse. Let's move forward. So one of my downs is Spencer Rattler's second half, and I say this with the caveat that Spencer Rattler's first half is in my up column, right? Because I just think that, and this is what I said going in, like, and I talked about this, I tweeted this, there was going to be 2 games in this game. One was the game that the Saints planned for, the game that you sent Spencer Rattler in with a plan, with answers, and he executed in that scenario. He executed when he felt like he understood what was happening, and you could see it. You could see like he had answers for the questions that were being posed to him. In the second half, the Bucs did things he did not expect. The Bucs did things the Saints did not plan for. They changed their plan to react to what the Saints were doing, and the Saints had no answers, right? I thought he got frazzled a little bit. I thought he made that throw to Rashid. It was like, you could have made a throw there. You didn't throw it right. Like you underthrew it, my biggest critique of him is he gets kind of antsy in the pocket. And even when he had a clean pocket and he just had to trust it, he would kind of step up. He would get out of that range and try to scramble a little too early. And, that's just kind of rookie jitters, I think. And, when the game was going well, it felt like he locked in. When the game was going poorly, it felt like it kind of snowballed and overwhelmed him a little bit. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I'm just saying, like, he played like a rookie in the second half of that game. And, it felt like, hey, that second quarter, you were like, man, maybe he can do this. Maybe this is like, you're going to see a guy show up and just dominate. And, I think there were some learning lessons in that second half. And
I'd be curious, do you know offhand how many passes he had thrown going into halftime? Because obviously 40 attempts for the rookie, way too many in his first game.
I don't, but the last few drives were, it's tough to look at the stats and take anything away from that, because like the game was over by the time he got the ball on that last possession. And honestly, those last 2 possessions, the Saints had a good chance in that game on the drive that he threw that interception targeting Rashid, right? Like it felt like they had, I think they were down 7. They were down 1 score. I'd have to double check. And that was kind of that moment where it's like, hey, you can either make a play here or you can make a mistake. And he made a mistake. And I think he played well. Like I I was talking to Nick Underhill before the game, and it was like, he was like, how do you think he's going to do it? It's like, I think he's going to play reasonably well. I just don't think he's going to play well enough for you to win this game. And we can say, yeah, the defense let up 600 yards. Like, the defense was a wreck. But I also don't think that even if they had held up, you would have, like, right? Like, once the Bucs took control of that second half, I don't think you were coming back. I don't think, however good the defense played, you were necessarily making a comeback in that game. I think that you needed to get out to a lead. That's what I said going in. I was like, if you're playing from in front, I think you have a chance. If you're playing from behind in the second half of that game, you don't, because of what happened. Because the part of the game where you needed the rookie to think his way through, he was not ready to do yet. And that's why when you get down 17-0, you kind of you kind of had the bullets in your gun and you were gone by halftime, right? Like,
the problem too was the rookie quarterback was also your second leading rusher in the game.
Yeah, you couldn't run the ball, so that's a problem. You know, once they kind of figured out the bootleg part of your game and took it away, you really couldn't do much there. He was under pressure constantly. I don't know. It's tough to even gauge because you look at the stats on defense and you allow 594 yards and they run 72 plays to your 66, which honestly is not as lopsided as it probably in reality was because of the way the game ended. They got 31 first downs to your 19. They averaged 8.3 yards per play to your 4.6. They rushed for 277 yards to your 81. I don't know, man. It's and the frustrating thing is, like, you can't put that fumble on him, right? The Olave fumble. Like, I'm sure, like, the thing they talked about in the post game was like, yeah, we're going to do tackling drills. Well, how about some ball security drills for the wide receivers? Like, now, obviously, Chris got hit in the head, and the concussion is a whole different thing. Like, one of my stock downs is like, is Chris going to be okay? This is his third concussion in 3 seasons.
And another case of helmet-to-helmet contact and no call for a Saints player.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not going to complain about that, but it's like that kind of play happens, right? But, when you're talking about a guy who has had 3 concussions in 3 seasons, right? We talk about Tua and all the concussions he's had. Like, when those start to add up, it becomes a problem. And so you start to get worried about that. Like, I don't know how significant the concussion is, but it was significant enough to rule him out of that game. So, I think it was last year against Atlanta, he had a concussion. Rookie season, it was against the Seahawks. So you worry about that. But yeah, I mean, the fumble for a touchdown, that's brutal. Like, in a game where, again, I felt like you need to play in front. Suddenly you're down 14-0 before your rookie quarterback can even make a mistake.
And man, Winfield was like shot out of a rocket going down the field with the ball.
Yeah, he looked like he was rested. Now I take that back. Like, there was a mistake early, but it didn't really hurt you that much. It was Spencer got a little too excited trying to throw a bubble screen and like took the ball too early and fumbled it. He got the ball back, but that was a negative because the first play of the game for Spencer was that nice long completion to Juwan. You're like, wow, this is perfect. And then it immediately came back down to earth of like, oh wait, yeah, that's right, it's a rookie. So yeah, it's a whole thing. But the wide receiver hands were a problem. But I'm not putting this on Spencer. Like, that Cedric Wilson drop was terrible. You got to catch that ball. But if I have to be critical of Spencer, I don't think he throws touch passes particularly well. I think he doesn't. He has a great arm, and the ball just fires out of his hand like it's on. Like,
it seems like there's a lot of heat on it.
Sometimes you just got to get it to him, like, in a way he can catch it. And he just rifles it in there. And maybe, if the receivers get more work with a guy and they get used to that, I think it was very clear that, like, Alvin, for example, like, there was a couple throws that it was like, Alvin always catches that. So what's going on here? And I think it was like, they're coming with a little more heat on him than maybe they're used to, because there was at least 4 or 5 times a ball hit a guy on the hands and just don't. And that's, I can't put it on the quarterback. You got to catch it. But at the same time, I do think that Spencer probably could use some work on those touch throws, because you don't always need to throw it as hard as you can.
Yeah, it seemed that there were a few times where the pass catcher was taken aback by how hard it was or fast it was coming in on him.
Yeah, it just didn't look like they just couldn't handle. Like, he was too hot. Like, it was coming too hot. There was one throw that literally just airmailed. I think it was Jordan Mims late in the game. It was just like, bye. So yeah, I mean, again, like it was not all negative. We're going to talk about some of the good stuff he did in the second segment, but that second half was rough. One other thing that I'll bring up, and I'm not going to single anybody out, but one of my downs is like Saints let go of the rope at the end of that game. Like, no question in my mind, they let go of the rope in the end of that game. And like you look at it and say, this game was not dissimilar to the Lions game last year, right? Where you got down early, you had a kind of the chance to bail, and you didn't. You fought to the end. Obviously, didn't go your way. This game, it felt like they had enough in the tank to kind of make that initial comeback. But then the fourth quarter, that defense, whether they quit or I think it was more so that they were just mentally defeated. And once you're mentally defeated, the actual defeat is only a few minutes away. Like, it's going to happen. Like, once you believe you've lost in your head, it's not going to take very long for that to actually happen on the field. But that, like, when I talk about, like, hey, how does a coach get fired, right? Like, how do you lose your job as a head coach? It's not the emotional, hey, they've lost several games in a row. This isn't going the way we want. Get the guy out of here. It's almost always going to be like, this team quit on you. Like, the locker room has you've lost it. And I don't think they're there yet. I don't think the Saints are there yet. But you see a few more performances like this where the end of the game is just your team has nothing. They have so clearly mentally checked out that it's a problem. Like, you're embarrassing yourself on that, in front of 70,000 fans, a lot of whom have already left because they cannot bear to watch it anymore. Like, those are the type of performances that get fired. Not, hey, we lost a tough game to Atlanta. We lost a tough game to Philadelphia. We went on the road and kind of got taken to task by the Chiefs, right? Those are things that happen. Those are things that it's the NFL. You're not going to win every game. It's a difficult league to win in. Okay. You host the Bucs and lose 51-27. You get shut out in the second half, and your defense gets pantsed for 600 yards. That's a ticking clock right there. That's what that is. And like, your calling card is your defense.
Right. That's what makes it looks worse right now, for sure.
Like, if you were an offensive coordinator, I would be talking. Like, if you were an offensive guy, if this was Sean Payton, we would be complaining about the defense, but we wouldn't be saying, "Hey, it's Sean. Sean needs to fix this." It would be fire Rob Ryan.
Right. They put up 27 points. That should be enough to win a game.
Right. But like, that's your thing, dude. That's your thing, man. Like, it cannot be this way. When the defense gets on the field with a chance to go win a game and the opposite happens, how do you justify keeping things the way they are? How do you justify the status quo when that's happening? And I don't know. Like, I don't see how firing a guy right now would actually fix anything. And I think that's what the Saints are going to land on. And you're not going to, it's funny, Sean Payton's coming to town, and you're definitely not firing him after that game, no matter what happens, because you don't want Sean to have the gratification of like feeling like he got he made that thing happen. But it's getting, the writing's starting to be on the wall now. If you can't get this thing turned around quickly, because like 3-4 with that mini bye, you feel like there's some winnable games coming up. You can get yourself back into this thing. It's not the end of the world. 2-5, that ain't it.
No, and things feel obviously miserable right now compared to where we were basically a month ago. And now you just lost the 4 straight, and those 2 initial ones were close matchups. You ended up dropping at the end, and then these last 2 have been games you just weren't a part of. Well, I guess you were a part of this one until after halftime.
Yeah, they're winning at halftime. Again, that second quarter feels like it was played in some kind of parallel dimension that was not actually this game. It was crazy. And it's funny, like Rashid, my last negative, and if you have any others, we can throw them in. But my last, like, very obvious negative, I need Rashid to stop stopping on his routes. I have seen that way too many times, and it is frustrating the hell out of me. Run your route, man. Don't stop because you don't think you're getting the ball. It happened last week against the Chiefs. Derek threw it anyway. If he had kept going, he had a chance. He stopped, and he ended up trying to make this one-handed grab. Didn't happen. Happened again this week in the second half. I think it was the fourth quarter. Spencer throws a ball, and Rashid stopped. And it's like, dude, run your route, man. Like, that's what you do. You go run your route. Finish your route. Stop stopping on your routes. Stop stopping on your routes. Stop stopping on your routes. Anyway, I'm not going to yell anymore, I promise.
For me, the other really last negative is just the all-around usage still of running backs not named Alvin Kamara. I was happy to actually see Jordan Mims get a carry.
Yeah,
Woohoo, Jamal got his 2, and then that was it.
I thought Jordan actually had some juice. I thought he looked decent. Why doesn't he get more run? Why don't we try something different?
I don't know. But yeah, that's
Pendre,
frustrating.
for whatever reason, they activated him and then kept him inactive. I don't know what the hell the point of that was. But here we are.
I don't know if that's more of a message like this. You're not ready. The mentally part of the game, I don't know. Because
why put him on the active roster?
You would think he's nice and rested by now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, like the thing is, nothing's changing this. Like either this group sinks or swims, right?
I mean,
like,
I know he's no Sean Tucker, but
he's no Sean Tucker, right? I just think you look at it and you're saying like, hey, either this group turns it around or this group doesn't turn it around, and then you're like, that is the solution. Is like you're not finding anyone and saying, hey, you've come to fix this, right?
yeah,
that's not how it works. Like this group has to find the answers, and if they can't, then this group is no longer going to be this group. It's going to be the past group.
it's just wild to me how. But I don't even know what the answers are anymore. Considering, like I said, you had 2 close losses. All right, you move from it. Some tough love. You learn from it and you grow. Whatever. But the last 2 games, you don't feel like you were really in it. I'm saying for the second half of this Saints game, at least against the Bucs, because wacky start, you come back, you fight, and then you just completely don't show up after, the half. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and losing Olave was tough, right? Like that,
Sure.
that doesn't help you.
Killing my fantasy team.
Yeah, and so that means in weeks 5 and 6 combined, Chris Olave has total 3 catches for 10 yards and a fumble.
And got a concussion. Another
and
one.
He's now probably, I mean, I would be I don't know how you could possibly, if you're in the concussion protocol period, I don't think it's even possible to clear it in 3 days. Like, unless you just had no concussion to begin with, which if that was the case, then why would you be in the concussion protocol?
Exactly.
So, like, the odds that he's back on Thursday are slim to none. So hopefully, we're going to talk a little more about Bub Means, but it's going to be the Bub Means show. But all right.
Well, that does belong in the positives, at least, because there's a connection at least that's already present, and you want to keep seeing develop, obviously, between him and Rattler.
Yeah, that's one of my main positives.
There you go. Right.
There's not many, but that's there, and it's legit. It's real. That's a good one. But no, like the annoying thing is, like, I can't be mad about necessarily the pass rush per se. Like, I thought the pass rush actually, again, for the second consecutive week, you generated pressure, just didn't get the guy to the ground. There were several times where it was like, what the hell's happening? How is it possible that Baker is still on his feet?
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like that's been Cam got an interception. He was far away from the quarterback.
It was one of those times too in the game where you're like, all right, this is something obviously he needs to, kind of ignite his season a bit, and maybe this will push the team over the edge in this game against the Bucs. And it just had that happiness, joyful feeling for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, at halftime, I was like, man, maybe they might just pull this off. and then it immediately went away. But all right, let's wrap up this segment. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some of the better things that happened, right? There's not going to be a particularly long segment because there weren't a ton of good things that happened, but there were some. So it's worth talking about. Like, again, like, I don't want to trash the rookie quarterback. I thought he did as well as you could hope a rookie quarterback would do in that type of situation. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. This is Inside Black and Gold. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Otherwise, we will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Sorry, that took a little longer than I intended. I went to go refill my drink because I need to get more lubricated before I try to pretend there were good things that happened today. And then Claire finished the bottle of wine, so I had to open another bottle of wine. It was the whole thing. But this is the second segment. We're going to do our 3-up studs, whatever you want to call it. There weren't a ton of them. But Steve, okay, give me one thing that you think went well today, Steve. Tell me.
We got to see a kick return from Rashid Shaheed was at least an exciting point of the game.
It was an exciting point of the game. You know, I do want to do a victory lap here, and I went in on this morning with you on stop putting Jamal Williams back to return kicks. I asked Darren Rizzi about this during the week, and I was like, "Can you just explain to me why Jamal Williams is returning kicks?" And I didn't mean it to sound that accusatory, but when it came out, it did, and I just but it was meant that way. Like it was, I was trying to make it sound a little bit more amicable, but it came out as like, why the hell would you do that? And like Darren was very taken aback by it. He was just like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, there's a lot of people on your roster that you could put back there to return kicks. Why did you pick Jamal? And he didn't really have an answer.
Yeah.
And we talked about it this morning, and I was like, there's no good reason to put Jamal back there. Because he was like, well, the other guy who doesn't return it has to block. And they're like, yeah, but if you put Jamal next to Rashid, who in their right mind is going to kick it within a mile of Rashid, they're going to kick it to Jamal. So Rashid's the one that has to block. And when you know it, so I don't know if maybe I put that bug in his ear or whatever, but Mason Tipton was back there for this game returning kicks, which is the common sense thing to do. The fact that that was not happening was stupid. It felt like they were just trying to give Jamal something to do. Like they felt bad because he was bored.
They're like, oh, that reporter's onto something.
Well, I don't know. Like, I maybe it's a coincidence, but I was happy to see it because it made no sense to me, and apparently it didn't make sense to a lot of the people too. But no, Rashid, you know, when he gets opportunities to return punts, it's a big play waiting to happen. So no, I mean that's it. He will always be an elite punt returner. Whatever else he does,
right?
I don't think you will ever get to a scenario where you're like, he's too important to the offense to have him back, to not have him back there returning punts.
Right, because he provides that boost on special teams that nobody else can.
I don't know if nobody else can, but he is that good at it.
Roster, like he does it better than anyone else right now.
He's an all-pro returner, and you want to take advantage of that. Yeah. So, okay, well, like one of my biggest ones is, hey, Bub Means, you know, we hadn't really seen him. He was a 5th-round pick. You know, they liked him out of Pitt. You know, he's a Louisiana guy. He went to Louisiana Tech, right? And we hadn't really seen him. Like, he and Derek hadn't necessarily had a connection. Like, you didn't run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, so he didn't get on the field a ton. And when you did have a 3rd wide receiver, it was often Cedric Wilson. But today, Olave went out, and, you know, I thought Bub looked good. Like, he didn't look out. Like, a lot of times you'll see a young receiver get out there, and he'll make a play or two, and he just kind of looks awkward. He doesn't look ready. Like he looks like undersized, or he doesn't look like he can hack it. First of all, dude's big. Dude's yoked. Like for a rookie receiver in the NFL, like he doesn't look undersized at all. Like when Chris Olave went out there as a rookie, we're like, man, that guy looks tiny compared to some of these defensive players. Bub, I don't feel that way. Like I feel like he can be that physical contested catch receiver for this team. And it's clear that Spencer is comfortable throwing in the ball, and it's not exactly why. That's a guy he's worked with. That's a guy he's thrown to all camp. Going into the game, one of my questions was, what's the chemistry like between Spencer and Chris Olave, Spencer and Rashid Shaheed? Well, you saw like that chemistry between him and Bub looked great because they've been working together. And I don't know, like I would bet that you're gonna have a hard time getting him on the waiver wire of your fantasy league this week, because anyone who watched that game was like, oh, Spencer likes throwing to Bub. Like he's looking for Bub.
And especially like you mentioned too, if you have Olave on your roster, chances of him being ready for Thursday Night Football ain't good.
Oh yeah. If you have a Chris Olave on your fantasy roster, go put in a claim for Bub Means right now, because he's going to be involved if Chris isn't out there, and I bet he isn't. So no, I talked to Bub after the game. So he actually, you know, he had one play that I was not a big fan of, and it was the incompletion early in the second half, right? And it was funny. I think the first drive of both halves ended with a receiver catching a ball and immediately putting it on the ground. Chris has went for a fumble, Bubs went for an incompletion. And what bothers me is like I feel like Chris's wasn't a catch either. They just
That's another issue, right?
But they didn't want to wipe out the fumble return. Like if that ball gets caught and dropped, if that ball gets knocked out and bounces out of bounds, I am 100% confident they would have called it an incomplete pass because it got picked up and run to the end zone. The value of it is so high that the overturn feels like there's more weight on it, that they're like, it was close enough. Let's call it a fumble. That's an exciting play. We're not going to overturn it. Whereas it's like, that's the same play. The exact same thing happened. But the second time, because it was a much more minimal impact on the game, they called it incomplete. Which, here's the thing. They overturned it to incomplete, but it was called a fumble on the field. And because it was called a fumble on the field, Connor McGovern has to go over there and try to make a tackle and gets called for a face mask penalty. But even though that play never existed, you still get penalized. That knocked the Saints out of field goal range. They were at the 35-yard line. They didn't score in the second half. That was their best chance to score in the second half. So it's like, guys, be consistent or don't do it. Anyway, that annoyed me. But that was when I say like, okay, you're going to be doing ball security drills for the receivers on Monday. That's why. Because like that was a first down. If he holds on to it, instead it just gets punched out. But that was really the only negative thing I saw today. Even on the interception to Shaheed, Bub Means actually came back and punched that ball out. It was kind of like a Robert Meacham, okay, come get the ball. And the Saints didn't get on it. But either way.
Yeah, overall it was nice to see Bub. I forget which podcast leading up to this game, you had put up an older clip from him from training camp talking about Spencer Rattler. And in my mind, I swear I'm like, wow, he went digging in the crates for a Bub Means clip. What's he even doing right now? And boom, he ends up doing something in this game. So yeah, that was nice. Obviously, which rookie gets to hold on to the football after that TD?
Yeah, well, so a couple things. One, Bub actually hurt his thumb. I did report that he was in the injury tent in the fourth quarter. Yeah, he hurt his thumb as he was punching it out. He said it wasn't a big deal. He should be fine, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the injury report. I expect him to play on Thursday, but what was the question? Oh, the football. Yeah. So I asked Bub if who got the football, and he was like, I didn't even think about that. He was like, I didn't even think about that. You just told me. Now I'm like, where is it? And Spencer was then asked in his press conference, and he was just like, well, they put it in my locker, so I guess it's mine.
And that's how that went.
Yeah. But no, it's kind of strange. I can't recall another scenario. I mean, definitely not for the Saints, where it's like, okay, a rookie quarterback threw his first career touchdown to a rookie wide receiver catching his first career touchdown. Which Deuce was like, oh yeah, but he's been active for other games. I'm like, that doesn't matter. What are you talking about? That's not how it works. Like,
maybe you just cut it in half and put it on a plaque for both of them.
Yeah. I don't know, but I did think that like maybe whoever gets it's going to have to like do something nice for the other guy. Let's put it that way. They both got signing bonuses. I bet Spencer got a better signing bonus, but no, I was a big fan of how Bub played, and in a game where not a lot went well. I think that's a really positive thing because, hey, you need that contested catch receiver. You need that kind of big body guy. And if he can work his way into that role, cool. I think he's got a lot of upside.
No, and nice to see. Obviously, I gave him in our, post-game show, I gave him the diamond in the rough performance, a 5th round pick coming up big and, really his most extended action we've seen him a part of.
They were both 5th round picks.
That's pretty funny, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, big positive there. And maybe he can be that larger target for this team that they're missing.
Yeah, no. And again, it's just like, there's not a lot to choose from when you're talking about, okay, what went well. So we went with that.
Yeah.
Another thing, like Spencer Rattler's first half, I don't have this first half numbers in front of me, but they were solid, right? There was no turnovers. Obviously there was that fumble, but that was not his fault. You had that one kind of smoke route or bubble screen, whatever, where he kind of pulled out too early. Didn't get his hand on the ball, didn't get the laces, and he kind of bumped out. He fell on it. But generally speaking, I thought he was calm, collected, on target with his throws.
Made some nice throws on the run even.
Right. When you were able to get him out in space, right? Like you move the pocket a lot with him. My critique is I need to see him be able to stand in the pocket and kind of live in the pocket a little bit more. But that the kind of boot keep game is a big part of this offense that I don't know if they've been getting to as much with Derek as they might have wanted to. And when you were able to get that game going, it worked, right? You were able to work across the field. You were able to hit Juwan Johnson for a big gain. You were able to hit Foster Moreau for a big gain. Again, Bub, right? I thought that touchdown pass was just excellent quarterback play. Like you delayed, you pump faked, you got it over the top to the guy, got him in the corner of the end zone. Was it perfect? No, but when you're looking at a rookie, like if he played the entire game like he did in that first half, we'd be talking about like, holy crap, what a debut. Instead, we're talking about, okay, he's a rookie, and we are treating him with kid gloves, to be fair. Like I was thinking like in the second half of that game, I was like, if this was Derek Carr and this game was going this way, and Derek threw a couple interceptions in the second half, and you weren't able to get any offense, get any sustained drives, how loudly, there's no question whether the crowd would be booing. It's how loud would the boos be?
There'd definitely be torches and pitchforks.
What would the decibel level of the boos be? Because they would, like, if Derek was playing that way in the second half, people would have been out for blood. But he's a rookie, so you kind of give him a pass, and we do have to acknowledge that. Like we're treating him with kid gloves because he's a rookie, but that's part of the deal. That's why putting him in this scenario where like going to a rookie in a game that feels like a must-win is just a nightmare, because that was always going to go that way. That's why in the pregame show I was trying to be like, guys, just understand this might not go the way you're hoping it will, and it probably won't go the way you're hoping it will, because that's like. It's hard to see a scenario where it's like, yeah, this went perfectly. There was no mistakes. If he got away without throwing any interceptions, you would have been like, wow, that's great. But the problem is that one interception really felt like it swung the momentum at a moment where like Baker went out hurt. You're like, wow, maybe if the Saints can go down and score here, they can take it over. But no, I mean, I thought, when you go back and you look at the tape of this game and you look at, you went down 17-0. This game could have been a nightmare.
It looked like it was going to be, right.
Right. And while the Bucs gave the Saints a lot of favors, right? They turned the ball over twice.
Penalties.
So many penalties. It was like they were trying to, the script writers were like, here, give him a chance, guys. Come on, give him a chance. But, he took advantage of those opportunities when they presented themselves, especially that final drive I thought was really impressive. The one right before, now, was it right before halftime? I'm losing. I think it was right before halftime, where you went down and then I think it was Alvin scored the touchdown. Like that was that was a big time drive in a moment where it was like, hey, you could take a lead going into halftime. That's a big deal. We didn't know at that point that the wheels were going to come off after halftime. You got the ball back after halftime. You were like, man, if you can score here and then go to a touchdown after halftime, you're up 10. And I think if you could, if Bub holds onto that ball, you get a first down, you finish off that drive for points, you're up 10. I think the second half of that game might go differently. Because the Bucs are probably going to get out of their game plan a little bit. They might be a little frazzled. It didn't happen that way. But I don't know. There's a lot of ways this game could have gone for the Saints, for the rookie. I think there's a lot of good in with the bad there. Even in a 51-27 game that sucked, I can't be mad about Spence.
You mentioned too with Spencer being able to hit Juwan and Foster Moreau. It was like, holy crap, we do have tight ends.
That was my other up.
Okay.
The tight ends actually can catch passes. Wow. What a thing. What a dream. The tight ends catching balls.
Amazing, right?
What's better than this? Guys being dudes. But no, like that's what's been driving me nuts. It's like you're telling me that these guys can't catch a pass. You're telling me that you can't get these guys 2 or 3 targets a game. Bullshit. It's possible. You're just not doing it, Derek. Throw the ball at goddamn tight ends. Because I mean, it's not like you peppered them with targets. Juwan Johnson got targeted 3 times, 48 yards. Foster got targeted 2 times, 54 yards. Those were your 2 leading receivers in the game.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't need them to be these dynamic downfield George Kittle, Sam Laporta tight ends, but I do need them to at least be a threat in the middle of the field so that the defense has to account for them. And I thought that was the case today. So that's a positive thing for me, because like I was starting to wonder, like, what's going on? This is stupid. Like, are we just going to pretend these guys don't exist in the passing game? Because that's what we're doing.
Mostly, yes. Yeah. I mean, you get like 1 or 2 catches from like a Foster or a Jawan. It would never usually be in the same in the game. This one, you felt at least both got, some action in here. And yeah, it was felt like early on, though. I don't know if there was really anything to Morrow and Jawan late. I guess obviously all the success with the offense came in the first half of this game.
Yeah, Jawan caught a pass late, but I mean, you weren't able to sustain drives in the second half, right?
No.
After halftime, the first drive was 7 plays, 35 yards, ended with the punt after that Connor McGovern penalty and the Bub Means drop, right? Next possession, 3 plays, -3 yards, punt. Next possession, 3 plays, 2 yards, punt. Next possession, 3 plays, 11 yards, interception. Next possession, 3 plays, -5 yards, punt. Next possession, 5 plays, 28 yards, interception. Next possession, 8 plays, 39 yards, end of game. So, and that's not even true. I think they turned it over on downs. So, again, one of the reasons the defense really fell apart at the end of that game is that you did not sustain a single drive in the second half. So it's like, even if you want to say hey, if the defense played better, maybe you give yourself a chance. I don't know. You had to score points. That was the thing I tweeted coming out of halftime. It was like, the Saints need to keep scoring points because I don't know if this defense can cover. One thing we didn't really talk about. So Tyrann Mathieu left. Alontae Taylor left with an injury. He came back, but I think he was playing hurt, right? Jonathan Abram dealing with a back issue. I was surprised he was able to get back because I don't know if you've ever thrown out your back, but once you do, it's tough. I would be surprised if he plays on Thursday. If he's able.
How much do you think not having Tyrann hindered the communication on the field?
Definitely didn't help.
I can't imagine, right?
And no, I mean it's a frustrating thing to watch because he's a big part of that defense, and no, especially from an emotional standpoint, you want him out there. But no, it just wasn't good. Anyone else you want to mention? I got one more, but anyone else you want to mention?
On the plus column, I'll have to give a shout out because Bobby said it first. He gave much love to the punter.
Yeah, that's my last one. It's my weekly. Hey, the punter's not that bad. I feel like every week I say this. How many times? Let's see. He punted 6 times. Ugh. One of them was a 58-yarder. He had 3 inside the 20 in an average of 44.3. Yeah, he's been great. He's been great. I gave him a lot of grief in the preseason, but he's proved me wrong. I like it. So every week I'm going to say, hey, the punter's all right. Right.
It's just unfortunate. That's where we're getting. We have to mention that in our ups, part of the conversation. And you're like, great. We're raving about punting.
You got to fill it out somehow.
But yeah, obviously, I don't think that, Headley was getting the job done. Sweet Lou, obviously, I can't imagine how things would be right now. But yeah, shout out to Hayball. He's been consistent too, come in the regular season, I feel like. No, I mean, you haven't seen. I'd like to see him get more punts close to the goal line. That's the only thing that he hasn't done is pin a team back to the 3. Right. And that is something Lou did a few times is he was able to get that ball really close to the goal line and have it checked back. And Matt's punts tend to be 10, 8, whatever. That's a very nitpicky critique. But no, he's been solid. And there hasn't been a moment. I don't think he's hit a bad punt yet. Maybe that first punt, the first punt he had against the Panthers was a bad punt after waiting. Right. Because it was oh no, here we go again.
When I asked Darren Rizzi about it, and he was like, we really didn't even know what we were talking about until week 3. Because we didn't even ask him to punt weeks 1 or 2 because we didn't have to. He was waiting 3 quarters, and in the fourth quarter we were like, all right, go ahead, see what you can do. But no, the last 4 weeks he's been really solid, and I don't know how his net numbers are looking. I'd have to double check, but you haven't asked him to punt backed up a lot. I don't think you've had a situation where he's actually had to punt from the end zone, right? There was a punt in that game where Camarda was literally standing the Rashid touchdown, right? He was literally standing at the back of his end zone, and when you have to do that, that becomes a very difficult scenario, and that's how you end up with a kick return touchdown. But no, I can't be mad about him. But I do think that's the last of my positives.
No, they're definitely. It's hard to come up with, and then you're like, all right, there were a little here and there, but yeah, nothing to rave about. Especially just the yardage and just the second half of the barrage of points that was put on you is just so dismaying.
Yeah, the 51. I'll give Dennis Allen credit because I think that what he was trying to do at the end of the game was to get his rookie quarterback another drive to get reps, right? Because if it was Derek Carr, he doesn't need that extra drive. Like he's got as many as he needs. Whereas for Rattler, I actually think, hey, get him another chance to lead a drive because that could benefit you on Thursday. So he did that at the expense of his defense having 50 hung on it. Because when you're calling timeouts on that final Bucs drive where they would have run out the clock if you gave them the opportunity, they're going to score. They're not going to not score. So it's 44 points, which 44 and 51, they're only one touchdown apart, but it feels a lot worse.
Oh yeah, once you get to the quote unquote 50 burger, it's like, ouch.
It feels a lot worse. And so I'll give DA credit because I think the only reason you're calling that timeout there is to get Spencer another drive to kind of work on some stuff. And by doing that, he kind of took an extra black eye on his defense that he probably didn't have to take. So I'll give him credit for that. It's not a good thing, but people were like, "Well, why do you call those timeouts?" I'm like, I think that's why, and I understand that, but it's just kind of funny because it's like the game was over at that point. Like calling the timeouts was just like, all right.
Well, I gotta hit the waiver wires and get me Sean Tucker. So
yeah, Sean Tucker and Bub Means. Let's see you can get. But all right, let's wrap up this segment. We're gonna come back. This is gonna take a little while because there's like 200 something comments in here. I'm sure a lot of them are just fire the coach, so those are gonna be pretty easy to sift through. But we'll have to go through and star a bunch of them so we can get through in our mailbag. So stick around. We'll be right back. This is Inside Black and Gold. My hair is going nuts. I have not been able to solve that problem. But we'll be right back. Subscribe. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. The Saints suck. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. They're terrible. They are.
Wait a minute, let me rephrase that.
They are the bane of my existence. The Saints want me. The Saints don't actually care about anything but making me personally as miserable as possible. That is the story of this game. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way right now.
They're like, hey, we gave you the first 2 games.
Hey, we gave you the second quarter. What are you mad about?
Hey.
Why are they Italian? Anyway,
I don't know. Right. I don't know what happened.
All right, this segment's supposed to end. Bye. I only got through like half the comments during that time. I need you to understand this. So
People are mad and they don't want to take it anymore.
I mean, it's just I'm trying to get through as many comments as I can, so that we can. I feel bad because normally I'm like, oh, I get through all of them, but it's like, geez, there's so many. I appreciate everyone in here. How you feeling? Giants tied the game up. I'm missing that.
I see the wonderful Bungles can't even take down the G-men. I thought Burrow was off to a hot start. I saw him rush for that big score.
It's all he's done apparently.
I guess so, right?
Oh yeah, they have 1st and 10 at the Giants 20 right now, so it looks like they're gonna take the lead.
I haven't seen the gritty in forever. Come on, Jamar.
That's JJ's move. Okay. What I don't get is why does everyone get mad at Gale? Like people want to complain and they get me as like, oh, Gale doesn't even care. Like, what do you want? Like, it just drives me nuts because it was like the best case scenario for a team owner is someone who doesn't complain about paying the bills, is willing to pony up in any scenario, is not like, oh, we can't trade for this guy because it's going to cost us more money. We can't do this because it's going to. He sent the team out to California because they need to go to California for training camp. Like, you don't want the owner to be like, actually, you should trade for Devontae Adams because I want you to. Like, no, good owners do not influence personnel decisions. Good owners are not constantly annoying and making their presence known. Good owners are stewards of the organization.
So do they want Miss Gale to sell the team?
I don't know. It's just people want to complain about something, but that's the wrong target. Like Gale is the best thing going for this team.
Oh no, we were definitely getting all post game too, from obviously Dennis Allen all the way to Mickey Loomis. Folks are ticked off and they want to take the Jets approach to things and just start canning people.
Everyone thinks it's like, oh, well, just get rid of this person, get rid of this person. So suddenly the problems are going to be solved. You could fire Mickey Loomis. It's not going to get the guys to tackle.
Right.
Like, it's just easier to say, like, I don't like this person, so get rid of them, and then everything will be solved. It's like I hate to break it to you, it's way more complicated than that.
We've just talked about it a ton too. They're not the type of team to just do that it's still not even the middle of the season to start the season even. But just in general, it seems like a move. They'll let things play out, and if things have to happen, the Saints will do something at the end of the year. It's not something where you're looking at a rough start to a year and you're just all of a sudden giving up on everything and tossing it to the wind.
Right.
It's kind of amusing to just think it's like where do the New York Jets really go from here now?
Here's the comment. Julius Rickle says, fire everyone and build around Hayball.
Well, there you go. Julius wins the night.
If they put more players around Matt Hayball, they might have a chance. That's good stuff. I appreciate that.
You know, and everything we've talked about too, there was no mention about the offensive line, and we really haven't been mentioning Trevor Penning's name or Fuaga's name. And I guess with offensive linemen, you always say that's a good thing.
No, the problem is they can't run the ball, and it's not really on the like. If you can't run the ball, your tackles aren't going to have a chance. All right, I think I've got a good smattering here. God,
yeah, the running the football. I don't even care who you put back there. Obviously, when you have Kamara, who's banged up, but obviously there's nothing else in the backfield. But so that's not going to get any better, even if you do have better O-line play at this point. To me, I don't know what to make of the Saints' backfield.
No, and yeah, okay. Let's start here. By the time
I'm confused with it, I don't get it.
All right. Oh, hold on. Go away. All right. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Go. This is our live mailbag edition. Yes, we've been drinking, but that's okay. We'll get through this together. The first one we're going to hit is Dre Day. We're talking about this after the Saints lost 51-27 to the Bucs in the worst day of my life. Says, hey, Jeff, ask DA if he will consider stepping down with his 2016-50 head coaching record. Maybe you can go coach a college team. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But no, I mean, like, the longer this goes, right? And I mean, I pretty much said it already. Like, I don't think anyone should be mistaking what I said earlier. If this continues, yes, this is Dennis Allen's last year as a head coach. Now, I don't know if that necessarily means you fire a guy midseason, but the writing's on the wall. Like, if you cannot turn this thing around and do it soon, then this road is ending. It has to. There's no way around it. Now, it's not over, right? Like, and the thing is, like, people are like, fire him. Like, you're not gonna get better for firing your coach and then saying, hey, Darren Rizzi, do everything. Like, that's not gonna solve your problems either. Like, firing your coach at this point in the season would actually make things worse, right? And if you want everything to burn down, fine, but that's not what the coaches are going to do with the organization, not what the GM's going to do with the organization, and not what Gail's going to do with the organization. That said, I fully expect if Dennis Allen gets fired, he's going to end up the next Steve Spagnuolo, right? Like, because he's an excellent defensive coordinator. And I think what you've seen is, not all coordinators make good coaches. And like Steve Spagnuolo, when he was with the Rams, he was the Rams, I think. He was terrible. He was bad. He was a bad head coach. Goes to the Chiefs, or actually he came here first. Was terrible here for some reason. And then goes to the Chiefs and is now like, everyone's like, oh my God, Spags, he's brilliant. He's the best. And I'm sure in 5 years,
except when he's in New Orleans. That year in New Orleans, not so much.
He came here, was inexplicably the worst. And then went to, I think I don't know if he went straight to KC. I'd have to double check, but
I don't think so.
And so, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if DA ends up getting fired and ends up a defensive coordinator somewhere and is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL.
But to our point here, it's not happening tomorrow.
I just, again, like, people are so short-sighted with like again, how would that help you? Like, you're not firing a guy just to fire a guy. You're firing someone if you have to, and you don't have to. And I
guess
I wish people would understand that
there has to be some atonement for what's going on, and
right. Like, people think like, oh, punish them, like, oh, things aren't going well. Yeah, do something to make them feel bad. Do it. Yeah, take his money away or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Like, have him stand in a public square with a sign that says "shame." That's just like,
the problem is, obviously, for Dennis is the fact that we've seen the defense now just not living up to the top tier billing it should at end of game scenarios or entire game scenarios. So that it's quite concerning.
Yeah, that's a problem for me. It's a problem for me.
Not being able to stop a run, is concerning.
Because if here's the thing, if the Saints had the worst defense in the NFL in 2020, in 2021, would you have made Dennis Allen your head coach? No. If your defense was playing like this, would you have made Dennis Allen your head coach? No. He's here because you were like, I really like how our defense is. I really like it. Can we keep it that way? What do we have to do to keep it that way? We haven't made a head coach? All right, let's make a head coach. Now,
what were they last year? 19 points a game?
I don't know. I genuinely
something like that. But you're holding teams under 20 usually.
Yeah, but even last year there were problems. Like like the end of the season really buoyed that. Like you got better as the season went on, but you didn't get blown out like this.
No. That's a fact, Jack.
Like the closest thing was the Vikings game, but they didn't really score in the second half. Like, that was the difference last year. Is this is the type of game you played in the first half, but then the second half you kind of locked down, right? Like the Vikings, I think they were up 21-0 at halftime, but then they ended up it was like 27 points total. Like the Lions game, right? They were up 21-0 in the first quarter, and then I think they had 33 total. It was 33-28 at the end of the game. So like, you struggled early in games, but you seem to get better as the game went on. This year, it seems to be the opposite. It seems like you're getting worse as the game goes on, and I don't know what you do with that. But all right, we got a lot of comments here, so let's do it. MB says, if DAC isn't melting hot right now, then I just don't know anymore. That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, people will say, hey, you lost games, fire him. You lost this game, fire him. It's not that you lose games. It's when you lose games this way that starts to get closer and closer.
I'm curious too. What's the idea then? Who takes over, I guess, as your interim head coach, and then who are you targeting to be the next head coach of the Saints right now?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about this in the last episode. Like, if you did fire DA, it would be Darren almost certainly, because special teams coordinators just kind of make sense naturally to take over in those scenarios because they have relationships with both sides of the ball. They know.
I've always thought Rizzy gives me head coach vibes anyway, so
he's better. He's already the assistant head coach, so it'd be kind of weird. Not going to him as the interim would be more of a statement than anything else. I don't think it would be Kubiak.
I agree.
But yeah. So this is something I disagree with. They say Sky says Spencer would have had to score on every drive. The defense was so bad. And I see you say that because at the end of the game, they couldn't, there was tissue paper, but realistically speaking, if they had led one scoring drive in the second half, when this game was within reach, I don't know. I think that's a shot in the arm to the defense. It gives them time to rest on the sideline, first of all. And I mean, you're talking about, like, let's see. The game was 24-27. So 27-24 at halftime.
Right.
The Bucs scored a touchdown in the third quarter. It was 31-27.
And then 3 more.
They didn't score again until 12:40. And that was a 6-point. So you're down 10. If you lead a touchdown drive at any of these times, then it feels different. Like, once you get turnover, punt, it's like, yeah, any defense is going to fold after a while. Now, they shouldn't fold that way, but it's the idea that, like, there was nothing the offense could have done in the second half to make that game feel more competitive is just not true. Like, it feels that way because at the end, again, they just fell. But, like, you could brace the foundations to some extent, right? Give yourself a chance. The fact of the matter is, if you don't score at all, you're not going to win that game. So I don't know. Like, we can be mad about the defense, but we can't say like, the offense did everything it needed to do. They absolutely did not. So it's like, the fault falls on both sides of the ball. Now it's like, hey, it's your rookie quarterback again, like we said, so you can't expect too much out of him. But one scoring drive in the second half would have certainly been welcome.
What's terrible for this team is both sides of the football, offense, defense, running the football. Neither one. The defense can't stop it, and the offense can't do it. That's terrible combination.
Yeah, Michael Mitchell says, why in the world does he keep running a dime defense on third down when he always gets beat in that defense? Look it up. Okay, here's the thing. Once you get undermanned, I don't think they were in dime because they wanted to be in dime. I think they were in dime because it was like, we like, there was a point where you didn't have Jonathan Abram, Alontae Taylor, or Tyrann Mathieu. You're looking at JT Gray, Jordan Howden, and Kool-Aid McKinstry as your safeties, like, and you're in your dime back, or I'm sorry, your nickel corner. Like, I mean, what are you doing? You don't have any extra linebackers either. I saw at one point they just threw DeMarco Jackson on the field just to throw him on the field. Like, they didn't have the bodies.
That belongs all in the negative column too. Of the continuation with the injuries is ridiculous.
No.
Like you mentioned, there was the point in the second there. It's like, wait a minute, who's even playing safety anymore?
Yeah, it was Jordan Howden and JT Gray. There was a point on the sideline that I watched Kool-Aid go over and sit next to Jordan Howden and Jonathan Abram, and it was like he was like learning. It was like, what do you do? What does a safety do? Because that's not what happened, but it kind of felt that way. It was like, guys, I have to play safety. Can you give me any pointers?
Crash course, real quick.
Yeah, guys, what do I do? Oh man, he had an interception lined up. Like it wouldn't have changed anything at the end of the day, but he should have had an interception in that game. But all right. MB says AK deserves better than this. And while I agree, AK had what? 2 drops, 3 drops in that game? I think it was 3. I think he had 3 drops. He looks slow. Now, I don't know if this is an accumulation of injuries from this season, if he's worn out, if he's beat up, but
I think it's a combination of that, all that you're mentioning.
he looks slow in this game. And, obviously you're talking about, hey, he didn't really have much of a chance to get any, like he was getting hit at the line of scrimmage constantly, but he didn't look like a guy who could do much in this game. Now it would be nice if you could catch the balls when they're thrown to you and maybe make someone miss in space, but I don't know. Like he did not look like a guy who was a difference maker in this game. And that's why it was annoying to me that Kendra wasn't active. Like, and even like when Jordan Mims got the ball, I was like, hey, Jordan looks like he's got some juice. Why don't we give Jordan the ball more?
Where'd he go? Who is that? No,
it's a very stubborn approach on offense that, I thought we were getting away from. Right? We're getting away from this idea that it's like, hey, we're not going to adjust. We're going to do what we do. Like Alvin had 13 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown, long of 7. Jamal Williams had 2 carries for 7 yards, a long of 9. Figure that one out. Jordan Mims had 1 carry for 5 yards. Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry for 2 yards. That's it.
Well, I remember vividly just because he got that. Jamal's first carry was for -2, and I was like, well, that's it. He's done for the game.
Yeah, well, and the 9-yard run was on like a 3rd and 25 or something like that. Like it was like a draw where he just picked up a couple yards. Like it was not like it is not a 9-yard run that you should be proud of. Let's put it that way.
No, the all around the Saints run game, abysmal, perplexing. I don't know how it's going to get better either, because Alvin, like you said, is not just looking like he's overused, overworked, but kind of now that beaten, battered down man right now.
Yeah. Board Elise says, Jeff Ireland, take away 2017. How many draft picks do we have that have potential but don't pan out? And I think that's a little overplayed. My issue has always been they don't make enough draft picks. They trade them, and then they end up having too much pressure on individual picks. And yeah, when those guys don't pan out, it's a problem. But like when they've made picks, they're on the field, they're contributing. Like I think Kool-Aid has been good. I think Kool-Aid's going to be solid. Alante has been good. Fuaga has been good, right? Brazil has been good. It's my issue is you don't make enough draft picks. And I know people are mad about A.T. Perry leaving. Like A.T. Perry, it is.
But he was a later round dude. It wasn't like you spent the top third. Like, what's that?
It's a 6th round pick.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like a first, second, or third rounder. To me, that's that kind of range. You feel like you invest in these guys and you want to get a bigger return out of, obviously.
Yeah, I mean the first rounders are the issue, but like a lot of the picks you've made have been productive players, and a lot of the UDFAs you've brought in have been productive players. But either way, it's like you gotta bring those guys in, and you gotta develop guys.
The defensive end, obviously, draft picks haven't been good recently, and then I think the issues with the offensive line too, people have, and I with good reason. I mean, but man, this year has been like the most brutal to me, because we knew going into the year, obviously, they were going to have issues, and the injuries upon the issues is just making things so much worse.
Agreed. Saint for Life says, thank God they didn't trade for Adams. That would only make matters worse. Like, yeah, if you were on the fence about trading for Devontae Adams, I don't see how you would even consider doing that now. Like that ship has sailed. There's no way. At this point, it's like, hey, can we win a goddamn game? Can we do that first? I also don't think Devontae's going to get traded.
Only if Devontae comes with an offensive or defensive lineman in the package.
Yeah. And let's see. John Edwards says, no, Jeff, stick a fork in us. We're done. you can be that way. Like I'm still gonna go out there and try to win games. Kendall Mitchell says, I disagree. He started pressing. He's talking about Rattler. He started pressing because we were down. If the defense would have held up, we could have won. Again, no, that's not what happened. Like you did not sustain any offense in that second half. That's not about pressing. Now, yeah, I mean, he threw an interception probably because he was trying to make something happen, but you had to make something happen because, I mean, did you expect the defense to shut the Bucs out in the second half? Like I could have told you going in, that was not going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they got clicking and it didn't go well they were worn down the defense and didn't look totally disinterested.
Lehman Park says we lost McCoy and everything went to hell after that. And it really does feel that way. Like
Eric, the extreme blue guy.
Who knew Eric McCoy was the only thing that worked on this offense? I equated it to like replacing the links on a bike chain with elastic bands. And it's starting to feel like that's a pretty good analogy because everything just feels like it's held together by like, chewing gum and duct tape and the margins. Like it's like when things are going well, it's like you're flying so close to the sun that you're like, how did that ever possibly work out? And then when things are going well, it's like they never had a chance. Like how they weren't even close. What the hell happened?
Speaking of offensive linemen, you saw somebody took a picture. Ramczyk was at the game. I'm sure you saw him.
I actually took a picture of him, but I didn't post it because I thought it was creepy. But yeah, Ryan Ramczyk was there, very much acting like a retired player. Like Ryan Ramczyk is on this team. He is getting a paycheck. He is on this roster. Now he's on IR or PUP or whatever it's called.
Right.
But like he's technically still a member of the team, but he was there like with his kid, like in jeans, just hanging out with all the people that go on the field ahead of the game. Like if Drew was there, that's where he would hang out. Like Malcolm Jenkins would like wander around, Jeremy Shockey, right? Like he was there like that. Like he was in a suite. And it's like it's so blatantly obvious that he's just not retiring yet because it would screw the Saints salary cap up. Like he is not playing again. There's no way. If he weighed more than 240 right now, I would be stunned.
He wasn't like doing some reps, getting some snaps in there, a little jogging.
He looked like he could be a tight end. Like he was not that much bigger than Jeremy Shockey. You saw Jeremy Shockey out there?
Yeah. Definitely surprising. I was like, that's Jeremy Shockey?
Yeah, he looks like he's like he probably weighs the same I do. Which is bad for me. But no, Ryan, I mean, you would, if you just saw him, you would never be like, oh, that's an offensive lineman in the NFL. Or that was ever an offensive lineman in the NFL. And that's the thing, like a lot of these guys, they aren't natural, like they don't want to be 300 pounds. They have to be 300 pounds. Like Connor McGovern was saying, hey, I was down to about 290 before I got the call. And they were like, hey, what do you weigh now? And he was like, I could be 300 by next Tuesday. And like, okay, I'm going to go eat a bunch of sushi and a lot of salt so that when they weigh me, I weigh enough. But like these guys have to actively try to maintain that weight. Like it comes off very quickly if you're not playing football or you're not trying to do it, especially if you have knee problems and you're trying to take some weight off of it. Like he's lost, I'd guess 40 pounds, maybe 50.
Has anyone seen Kendra Miller?
What are you talking about?
It's just making a bad joke. It's like we're seeing all these players, but it's like I don't get it either. That's another one. It's like I thought 5 to 7 snaps for crying out for Kendra Miller and still nada.
Yeah. Danny Pang says good teams like the Packers stockpile draft picks. I mean, I don't know if the Packers are the best example, but no, I mean, you need a draft, you need a war chest so that you can go get the guys. Like my problem is the Saints like to get aggressive, but they never build up the picks before they get aggressive. They get aggressive with their already diminished stable of draft picks, and then they just make like 4 picks. And it's like when you go back and look at the best drafts in Saints history, you're looking at like 2006, where they made like 9 picks and got like 6 Pro Bowlers. 2017, where they made like 9 picks and got like 6 Pro Bowlers. But then every year it's like, oh, we made 3 picks and 2 of them were not good. Anyway, Brian Cavett says Ram weighs less than Derrick Henry. You're probably right.
Yeah, the problem with the draft is too, obviously the guys you have traded up and you ended up getting have not panned out.
No, not. I mean, you traded up for Alvin, that worked. You traded up for Eric McCoy, that worked.
I was going in the first round range for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Davenport did not work out. Trevor Penning. I mean, realistically speaking, I feel like what you've gotten out of Trevor Penning is reasonable for a first round pick.
I'll give you, he's still writing his story, so I won't write.
Getting
I
a
wouldn't
starting
write him
player
off.
out of a first round pick, it's not the end of the world, especially at like 19. You're not talking about top 10. So, if like Fuaga was like what, 12, 14, 12? I think it was 14.
Yeah, I think it was 14.
So I don't know, like Trevor is getting closer to the range where you're like, I can live with it. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? As long as he's a player that you can play, you're like, hey, it's not, you at least get a starter out of it. So that pick is starting to look a little better. But no, I mean, there's a few drafts in there that were just terrible. Fans know what's right for this team, Drede says. We've been saying go get a top offensive lineman during the offseason. Saints did not address the issue. Wow. You came up with that idea all on your own? Go get a top offensive lineman? Wow. How'd you think of that? Man.
Front office man right there.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, oh no shit, they should go get a top offensive lineman. Yeah, the problem is they're making like $28 million a year, and you're not doing that. And there's not that many of them available. It's not like they're just sitting there like, oh, hey, look, you want to come play for us? Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you don't think this team is aware? It's like, hey, well, we would probably be better off if we went and signed a top offensive lineman. Anyway, I just think that's funny. No, you have to build through the draft. Like that's the only way to sustainably build.
Why don't we have a top pass rusher?
Yeah, go do that. Well, they actually did go sign a top pass rusher. But either way, like the only way to sustainably build a team is to draft through the lines, to build through the lines in the draft. And the Saints have
tried to,
especially on the offensive line. Like, and if when players are healthy, great. When you lose 3/5 of your offensive line in the first month of the season, I mean, frankly, I don't think there's a team in the NFL that would be like, yeah, we're okay, we're not struggling. Now, the problem for the Saints is they don't have enough around that to succeed in that scenario, and I don't know, but I just think it's funny. I was like, oh, the team just didn't realize they need better offensive linemen. No, they know, they're aware.
No, I'm totally buying into our previous texter on here saying that everything went to hell with that or Eric McCoy.
Yeah. BB Saints Pels lady says, at least the Cowgirls were similarly shamed today. Did that appease Bobby Hebert at all? I think that was after y'all, or at least like later on the show. So I don't know if you were.
No, that was the game on CBS. So we weren't watching that during the point after. And yeah, Bobby even mentioned, he's like, all right, the Saints might have lost. That sucks. But any day that the Cowgirls lose is always good.
Yeah, they're 3-3 now. I mean, the thing is, the season is still so early. That's why it's frustrating, because it's like you have so much time. You just need to string some wins together and things feel completely different. But it's hard to see that. It's hard to see right now a team that's ready to go win 2, 3, 4 games in a row, because that's what you need. You need to turn around and go win a few games in a row. You've lost the ability to be able to say, hey, we're just going to kind of win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. No, you need to put together a winning streak. But what has this team done to this point that makes you feel like they're even capable of doing that?
Nah, second half in the game against the Bucs definitely doesn't give you any confidence going forward now.
Dennis says run somebody else between the tackles. Pammy Wamey says AK has a broke/fractured hand. I don't think that's true. And broken ribs. Kubiak should use others. I mean, he has a hand injury. I don't think he has a broken hand. But he is dealing with a hand injury, so that's possibly part of the reason he dropped some of those passes. All the more reason that Spencer should stop throwing them so darn hard. But no, that is a good point. Like I kind of glazed over that with the drops. Like he is dealing with a hand injury. Maybe that was a factor. But either way, you're out there. You got to catch the damn ball. All right, let's do one more. Let's try to get one more, and then we will.
Yeah, I've sadly been waiting to like this big Adam Prentice game, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, you've been betting on that. You've been betting all the Adam Prentice props. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay, so Dennis says, let's be real. Do you think Carr would have scored more than Rattler? Now, it's a good question. It's a good question. And I kind of find myself thinking, like, would this game be different if Derek was in there? And I don't think the first half necessarily would have been different. I think the first half would have played out similarly. I think you would have had a better chance in the second half. Just because you could, I think you were very limited with what you were going to ask Spencer to do. And once the Bucs kind of got a read on what you felt comfortable with, and remember, this is a short week. They didn't have a ton of time to come up with all these plans for Spencer Rattler that they didn't have previously, right? Like you didn't plan ahead for this. It's not like you knew going into Kansas City on Monday night that, oh, Derek's definitely going to get hurt. We better get ready for Spence, right? So, I think there was some stuff that you were comfortable with and some stuff that you weren't as comfortable with. And so I think that you would have just been able to do a little bit more with Derek to counter what the Bucs were doing to you. And I think that's why that game just it felt so impossible in the second half, because the Bucs found a way to beat what you wanted to do. And then you didn't have answers beyond that. And I think if Derek was in there now, you may have been down by more. I don't know. I don't know how Derek would have handled the first half. I think you would have probably run the same offense generally in the beginning, and maybe you still have the same fumble and situation. So maybe you're down 17-0 the same way. And I don't know if he rallies back the same way, if the defense does the same things. I don't know. But I do think you probably would have had a more competitive offense in the second half if Derek was in there.
Yeah, especially obviously you look in hindsight. Well, you can't change it because obviously Carr's hurt, but you see Rattler's thrown 40 times in a game. That's just not a good thing.
No. A couple people say Vrabel. Vrabel would be the next option. That's not a terrible pick. Brian Cavett says Benton would be the head coach, which I disagree. A couple people saying Brian Flores or Aaron Glenn. Maybe. I don't know.
I can't believe nobody put Bill B out there.
Bill Belichick?
Yeah.
No way. They would never give. I don't think Bill's going to get another coaching job. Randall Alfrecht. Okay, this is a perfect hypocritical question. It says, can y'all fuck up on the job and keep your jobs? Yes, that happens all the fucking time. Because we're not talking about like, oh, you just didn't go to your work. Like, it's not like we're talking about like a no-call, no-show where like you threw your boss's dog off a bridge. It's like, hey, you didn't do the best job of like this assignment. And no, normal people don't get fired for things not going perfectly at their jobs. That's not how it works. I don't know.
I will say, to be fair though, if you keep doing that and it's multiple times, then it's like, well, yeah, you're not doing it.
Yeah, but it's all relative, right? Like, so it's like we're not talking about like, hey, like you crashed your boss's car into some idiot's Chevy Spark in the parking lot. That did happen. I shouldn't bring that up. I don't know. It's just funny to me. It's like, no, most people don't get fired for for mistakes at work. You talk about it, you fix it, and you move on.
But I'm saying if there's multiple times where they're talking about this, you're making the same mistakes.
Sure. But it's all relative. I like this idea that we can somehow compare NFL players and NFL.
No, not at all. Right.
To like a job at Arby's. And like, oh, we would fire this person because he gave the wrong change. I don't know. I just think it's funny. Like, stop doing it. Put the drinks down. No. How rude of you.
A little sip left.
Okay, one more. TJ Scottzilla, 1986. Which is great name. Says, dudes was making business decisions on defense, and I don't blame them. And it did feel that way late in the game. And I don't want to single anybody out. I don't want to say like, hey, these guys stopped trying, but they were beaten. They were not. They like the second they got on the inside the red zone on that last touchdown drive, I was like, they're getting a touchdown. There's no question.
That's concerning because that's a first to me under Dennis Allen. I have not seen that from this team.
No, and that's what I'm trying to point out is like, hey, like this is different.
Yeah.
This isn't the same kind of like people want to make it out like this happens all the time. This is just a repeat of this and this and this. It's like, no, this is very different. This has not happened this way. Like the Lions game last year could have gone this way. It didn't. That's why this game feels significant to me. But we'll see. You got the Broncos on Thursday, and if you can find a way to win that game and get things back on track, maybe things feel better. If you can't, then yeah, I think this season gets late early, and I think we've seen kind of the narrative that's going to play out under the Dennis Allen era, and we probably already have. We probably already know how it's going to go, but we'll find out.
Yeah, Denver obviously had a stinker this week too, losing at home 23-16 to the Chargers.
Yeah, so they're going to be coming in mad, right? Another team that's not good. Like Sean Payton isn't feel great about what he's doing over there either. But all right, let's wrap up this pod. We've been doing it for 90 minutes. Thanks everyone for hanging out. This game sucked. It's going to be a short week, so this is going to be a very weird schedule for us here at the Inside Black and Gold headquarters, which is the spare bedroom of my house. And well, I'll probably Tuesday I'll try to come out with a pod with the injury report and probably turn that into our preview episode. I don't know if we're going to have time to do multiple episodes. We're going to get our initial injury report tomorrow, which will be just estimated. Tuesday should be an actual practice. And then we'll have the game on Thursday. So it'll be a quick week, thankfully, because I don't want to talk about this game any more than I have to. And we'll go from there. But thanks, everyone who tuned in. We got a lot of people in here, a lot of people commenting. Some of y'all have been nice. A lot of y'all haven't been nice, but that's okay. You don't have to be nice.
I feel the pain. It was obviously, this losing sucks. Winning's a hell of a lot more fun.
I'd be worried about you if you were nice. But all right, who dat? Go Saints. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back. Will the Saints be back? That's a good question. We'll find out.
Good night in Who Dat Land.
Peace.